Winners are fighters, and I can't name anyone off the top of my head that has won more races and had to fight harder than Willy T. Ribbs. Willy T. has 30 professional victories in this country and Europe. He started his career driving against and beating guys like Nigel Mansell. He's driven sports cars, Formula cars, endurance cars, Winston Cup cars, and of course, Indy cars. All those are powered the same way. They all run on money. And that's the one place Willy T. Ribbs has come up short. But that may be changing. Bill Cosby, the man who owned Thursday Night on television, has teamed up with Willy T. to help get the sponsorship dollars needed to run a first-class Indy team.
Bill Cosby, who is best known, of course, for comedy, is getting into cars. He's sponsoring a new racing team, and today he introduced his star driver. Cosby introduced Willy T. Ribbs, the driver for the racing team, who, if he races at Indy, would be the first black driver in the 80-year history of the Indianapolis 500.
I saw Willy drive, and I think that Willy should be playing with the big fellas.
Ribbs has several career Trans Am victories to his credit, and so with his move to an Indy-style car, the team's boss has no doubt about who will be doing what.
He drives, I do the jokes, but he's allowed to do jokes as well, but not while he's driving.
And where will Bill Cosby store his new toy between races?
I don't want anybody messing with it, so I keep it in my living room. But you can't sit on it, and it isn't an ashtray.
Next season's first scheduled Indy car race is April 8th in Phoenix. Cosby and Ribbs plan to be there.
Willy's no longer satisfied with being the first black racer to qualify for the Indy 500. He wants to be an Indy 500 winner who happens to be black.
We got a tremendous amount of work to do, and I've got a lot of learning to do here, a lot.
What kind of number would you like to see this car do?
Well, you know, we really don't know. Probably 217, 218 would be a good number.
I never thought driving Indy cars was anything like snake charming. Not that you don't meet a few snake oil salesmen in racing, even a few charming snakes. But Willy T. will tell you, you can sure get snake bit at Indianapolis.
Indy is like a cobra. If you play your flute right, it will come out of the basket and won't bite you. But if you miss a note, it's going to sink some teeth into you.
Willy T. still has teeth marks from his first try at Indy back in 1985. That was a low-budget, last-minute affair put together with owner Sherman Armstrong and the legendary team manager, George Bignotti.
It was very naive of me to go and think that without doing any homework, I was going to jump into a car, unfamiliar team at Indy. Once I got there, you know, to start my first day of practice, and I think we're going to even go through rookie orientation now, that same day, I realized that it wasn't quite what I thought it was going to be.
That night, the story crackled across the airways like this.
This morning, Ribbs made history, becoming the first black driver to tour the circuit. At noontime today, everything seemed fine. 7 hours later, he announced he was withdrawing.
The thing about it is, you know, you can get hurt here, and you got to do things right. If it doesn't feel right, then you don't run here. Oh, everything was good, but see, it's good up to a certain point. Then you cross into another zone, you know. And that's the part where experience comes in.
Armstrong and Bignotti joined Ribbs at the press conference. Both agreed that it was the best thing to do.
It takes quite a person to say, hey, I'm not ready for this. Most of the times, people will just go on and on, wear their equipment out, hit the wall or whatever. But I think Willy, you got to give him a lot of credit, because he came to me and said he really wasn't comfortable. He said the car was great, the car ran good, but he just wasn't in a position that he felt he could run 200 miles an hour right off the bat.
I got a lot of flack over that. There was a question, when I didn't do it, there was a question of my not just integrity, but a question of my courage. Either you have a feel for a car or you don't. And I knew that it wasn't right, and a lot of people, Jim Truman advised me against it that very day, and it was a professional decision. And I think it was a decision that made sense.
Like the song says, you know, I might just take this thing up professionally. Anyway, like the song says, you got to know when to hold them and you got to know when to fold them. But even if you're a fighter like Willy T. Ribbs, when you walk away from the table, it can be a long time before you get back in the game. In fact, it would take 6 years for Willy T. to get back to Indy. It only took him 8 years to get there in the first place. Like most drivers, Willy T. caught the racing bug from his family. His father, Bill Bunny Ribbs, was a sports car racer in California in the 50s and 60s. But he didn't plan on young Bill becoming a racer.
Well, I'd planned on him being a plumber, but he decided crawling under houses and things like that wasn't really what he had in mind. When he decided he was going to go racing, he was going to go racing proper. So he went to driver's school, and right after driver's school, he took off and went to England. He conned his mother out of the money to...
Did he approach you about it first?
No, he talked to his mother because he can con his mother.
In England, he raced in a series called Dunlop Stars of Tomorrow. He competed with drivers like future Formula One champion Nigel Mansell.
I knew that Emerson Fittipaldi and a lot of great drivers and Dan Gurney, they had gone to Europe. And I wanted to see if I could go and win, and if I could, then it answered a question that I had in my mind.
And win he did, scoring his first victory in his second race. He went on to win 6 of the 12 races in the series. But let me tell you, you never ever forget that first win.
It was the most intense feeling I'd ever had in my life. I mean, it was like I was reborn. I was